Shockwave at Illinois Six Flags Great America. This coaster was revolutionary at the time of its opening. It broke several records and was an instant hit for the park. But just 14 years after its debut, the ride was unceremoniously torn down. But how could such a massive A-list attraction bite the dust in such a short amount of time? Let's find out today on Theme Park Crazy. Since opening in 1976, Six Flags Great America in Gurnee, Illinois has served as the #1 amusement park destination in the state. Originally known as Marriott's Great America, this was one of 2 theme parks operated by the Marriott Hospitality Company, with another one opening in California. Marriott hoped to be the next big theme park brand, competing with the likes of Disney and Six Flags. However, in less than a decade, the company's ambitions came to an end. Their parks had underperformed financially, and their attempt to build another amusement park between Baltimore and Washington, D.C. was canceled due to zoning issues and local opposition. In 1984, Marriott would complete the sale of their Illinois park to Bally Manufacturing, parent company of the Six Flags chain. That year, Marriott's Great America was rebranded as Six Flags Great America. The new owners had big plans for the park and would open up a brand new roller coaster named Z-Force the next year. While this unique roller coaster was a one-of-a-kind attraction, it would soon be completely dwarfed by the next coaster installation. In 1987, officials at New Jersey's Six Flags Great Adventure were planning on building a record-breaking roller coaster at their park. Unfortunately, 1987 was a terrible year for Great Adventure. The park had been facing a firestorm of bad publicity after a series of incidents and accidents. That April, 1 person was shot and 2 people were stabbed inside the park, leading officials to increase security measures. On the 4th of July, an employee was seriously injured by a camel in the park's safari. Worst of all, a woman died in June after falling out of the Lightning Loop's roller coaster. All of this took place 3 years after the tragic haunted castle fire killed 8 teenagers, so the park was at its lowest point in history. Attendance plummeted 30% in 1987 as a result of the constant bad publicity. This also led to the reassigning of 4 top executives and the firing of 20 employees. At the time, it was decided it wouldn't be appropriate to build such a major attraction at such a rough point in the park's history. So Great Adventure decided to focus on new family rides and sell the new coaster plans to Great America instead. They sold their plans because each Six Flags park operated individually at the time. First announced in 1987, this new enormous coaster would be named Shockwave. Built by American manufacturer Aerodynamics, this coaster was known as a Mega Looper, and it would be the company's largest scale coaster design to date. It was set to break 2 records upon its opening. At 170 feet tall, it would be the tallest roller coaster in the world.
Theme Park Crazy is on vacation and left his microphone at home, so I will make this correction. He meant to say the tallest full-circuit coaster, Moonsault Scramble, was taller at 229.7 feet.
With 7 inversions, it would also have more upside-down moments than any other roller coaster, breaking the record previously held by Vortex at Ohio's Kings Island. Essentially, Aero would be breaking their own record here. Aero's president Ron Toomer would design the attraction, with his company putting it together. With the plans in place, construction was officially underway. One interesting thing the park did during this phase was have Bugs Bunny on the scene when the first support column was erected. With each new piece of track, the hype was undeniable, and soon enough, the coaster would finally open to the public on June 3, 1988. Upon its debut, passengers were introduced to a roller coaster on a scale never seen before in the area. After ascending the lift hill, the train would maneuver a twisted 155-foot drop. Immediately afterwards, the train would climb upwards into a vertical loop. This loop towered 130 feet above guests waiting in line, and it stood tall as the star element. Afterwards, a bank turn to the left would lead to 2 consecutive vertical loops. Next was an extremely tight left turn into a mid-course brake run, followed by a double inverting batwing element, also known as a boomerang. Soon after a banked right turn and a double corkscrew, the ride would come to an end. The intensity, size, and never-before-seen number of upside-down moments made this attraction an instant hit for the park. That year, Great America would see record attendance, with more people visiting the park than ever. The coaster drew so much interest that Chicago teachers would often take their students on field trips to the park to teach them basic physics. The ride was such a success that Arrow would go on to sell 2 more Mega Loopers, the Great American Scream Machine at Six Flags Great Adventure and Viper at California's Six Flags Magic Mountain. Each coaster would feature the same elements in the same order with almost identical layouts, though there were a few changes. Despite the initial success of Shockwave though, the coaster would face a number of problems that hampered its run at the park. Interestingly enough, the ride's impressive size and scale contributed to many of its issues. For much of its history, Arrow had designed much smaller and more compact looping coasters. Even in the late 80s, their roller coasters were mainly manufactured and designed by hand. Track was profiled on site, and the company was slow to adapt to the more modern computer-based design methods. This worked fine for the smaller, slower coasters of the 70s and early 80s, but as their projects became more ambitious and bigger, more problems would arise. Company officials were reportedly well aware that they needed to transition to computer design software, but Ron Toomer allegedly refused to do so, arguing that it would be too expensive and too time-consuming for a company as large as Arrow. As a result, aerodynamics was unable to properly factor in how higher speeds and greater forces would take a toll on their coaster's ride experiences and structural integrity. One major issue was the inversions. The vertical loops, the batwing, and the corkscrews were the same size that you'd find on the company's smaller coasters. Unbeknownst to Arrow, just because their vertical loops worked well on coasters like Cedar Point's corkscrew didn't mean the exact same design would work on a coaster twice as tall and around 25% faster. Instead of trying to make the inversions bigger, Arrow simply placed the inversions higher off the ground so that the trains didn't enter them too fast. But this still didn't take into account exactly how fast the trains would enter the inversions. As a result, the vertical loops were all under-supported, and the fast-moving vehicles put too much stress on the track's welded sections. Eventually, all of Arrow's Mega Looper installations would have the tops of their vertical loops replaced and given more structural bracing. Another issue Shockwave had was the turn into the mid-course brake run. On the layout, the train entered the loop on the right and exited on the left, forcing the left turn into the mid-course to be way too tight. This was often considered the worst part of the coaster. The turn was so abrupt that passengers were often slammed sideways into their restraints. This issue was noticed pretty early on, and on the Great American Scream Machine, it was remedied by having the train exit the loop on the right. This allowed for a more gradual transition, and on Viper, there's no left turn at all, instead featuring a nice pop of airtime before its mid-course. Shockwave's issues extended beyond the vertical loops though, with several other sections of track requiring constant attention and maintenance.
I'd like to bring up another point as well. Shockwave's trains were also the same as on their smaller coasters. They couldn't handle the forces either, and their wheels would often have to be replaced. Shockwave's crew had to regularly pay attention for any strange noises the wheels made.
The ride's scale was ahead of its time, and Arrow's old design methods just couldn't keep up with a project so massive. Perhaps the greatest flaw with this coaster was its roughness. Over the years, the constant stress put on the track would gradually cause more discomfort as time went on. Throughout the layout, passengers would be shaken side to side, banging their heads, necks, and shoulders on the unforgiving restraints. What's worse, the coaster would cause a high amount of injuries. This was especially true towards the end of its run. Most of these injuries resulted in neck and/or shoulder pain. Some required hospitalization, one involved a dislocated shoulder, and one incident involved a guest hitting her head on the headrest and losing consciousness. As time went on, the coaster's popularity would seriously decline. By the new millennium, ridership was a fraction of what it used to be. Still though, there was no sign of this coaster being removed anytime soon. Instead, park officials announced that they would remove the park's classic Whizzer roller coaster at the end of the 2002 season. This coaster was among the park's opening day attractions, but the park planned on replacing the old ride with a new flying coaster themed to Superman. Park fans were absolutely livid at the Whizzer being removed. Soon enough, park officials were met with a downpour of petitions and angry letters from longtime fans. While the park still wanted to build the new flying coaster, officials had realized the full extent of how cherished the Whizzer was. Before long, the decision was reversed, and the Whizzer continues to operate to this day. However, the same can't be said of Shockwave. With the Whizzer spared, Six Flags said they would remove Shockwave instead. After years of being a maintenance nightmare and an overall unpopular attraction, it was clear that Shockwave had no place in the park's lineup. To some park fans, this choice should have been clear from the start. Many speculated that Six Flags was only pretending to remove the Whizzer. That way they could drive up the Whizzer's ridership before announcing that Shockwave would be taken out instead. Soon enough, the decision was made to take Shockwave apart. Initially, officials planned on selling the coaster to another park. However, since the track was welded together as one big piece, the disassembly process would be both expensive and time-consuming. Photos of the track show it carefully being taken apart when dismantling began. However, sometime later, it was decided to just scrap the whole thing. Realistically, what park would want an old, out-of-date coaster with so many design flaws? The track would sit in an open field by the employee parking lot for months. Eventually, most of it was sent to the Cleveland recycling plant in Zion, Illinois. There it would meet its end as scrap metal. The next year, Superman Ultimate Flight would open in Shockwave's former spot, where it still operates today. However, not all of Shockwave is gone for good. While Shockwave's red train was sent to the now-defunct Great American Scream Machine for parts, its blue and yellow trains were sent to Magic Mountain, where their parts would be used on Viper's trains. Today, Viper is the only Mega Looper still operating, and believe it or not, it's a pretty decent coaster considering its age, at least in my opinion. Meanwhile, the lift motor was reused on Great America's other aerodynamics looping coaster, Demon. Another part reused for Demon was some of Shockwave's old track. This was installed on Demon's corkscrew, since part of the old track had corroded from a now-defunct waterfall effect. Moreover, the ride's gift shop sign was relocated to the gift shop by Goliath. If you were ever wondering why there was a corkscrew on Goliath's gift shop sign, despite Goliath not having a corkscrew, it's because it belonged to Shockwave's gift shop. Finally, there's this gravestone that appears every year as decoration for Fright Fest. It says, "They said save the Whizzer, and Shockwave became chopped liver." Nowadays, not too many people miss Shockwave or its rough ride experience. While it was a groundbreaking attraction for the time, its design was misguided. Simply put, the primitive technology used to create it was inadequate for a coaster of such a large scale, and its brief run at Great America will forever be known as one of the biggest failures in roller coaster history. Now it's time for the comment shoutout program. This is where I take 3 random comments from my past video and read them out. These comments are from my video on Mark Ride's new concepts. Princess Kristen says, quote, "These rides look so cool. I would probably ride the Eagle Force model because it looks so bizarre." Rad Brick says, quote, "This guy's rides are sick. They are so unreal, very imaginative." And Fuxin says, quote, "I would have done the same with concepts if I wasn't too lazy to study engineering." If you want to see your words in my next video, leave a comment down below and it may be selected. Please note though that inflammatory or spam comments will not be read. Thank you all so much, and if you want to support me on Patreon, you can do so once again at the link in the description. Thanks for watching, everyone. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe. You can follow me on social media on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or you can check out my website at themeparkcrazy.com. This is Theme Park Crazy, and I'll see you all next time.